Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences that playing games with friends and families can create. Today we have a special guest with us. We've got Master Umpire James from the International Kriegsspiel Society. So James actually ran a play-by-post campaign of the War of the Rings for quite a few members of our channel and a few outside members also that I know. And we recently came to the conclusion of that, which I will say wasn't to my expectation. It should have gone a little differently, and the good team should have won. But I
Oh wait, I thought they
digress.
did.
Hush. Um, but I will turn it over to James here to talk a little bit about Kriegsspiel, which was the system this is all based off of. The society that really keeps this game going for such an old game, and a little bit about the game that we ran.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm James. I'm a master umpire in the International Kriegsspiel Society. I've been a member with them a little over 3 years. And the International Kriegsspiel Society is about 4 years old. Actually, they just had their 4-year birthday. But what the society is trying to do is basically bring back Kriegsspiel to the masses. Kriegsspiel is a game that was invented in the 1800s by Prussian officers. It was used for military training initially, but quickly became a game of kings and queens and nobles, and was popular for a period because it was quite different from anything that had come before it. Kriegsspiel in itself is very simple. It's just a game with heavy fog of war elements. Usually the movements and actions are simultaneous, and there's an umpire involved to handle all the rules and systems. And so that can mean a lot of things. It can be any sorts of military battle or campaign, but it can mean more than that. It can be used in any kind of conflict management. So it's quite useful. It's quite fun. I discovered it, like I said, basically 3 years ago, and since then I've risen through the ranks within the International Kriegsspiel Society, becoming a master umpire. I've hosted over 150 games since then, a mix of live and play-by-post, and I really enjoy it. So when Evan reached out to me and asked for me to host a game, I was excited. I had done one Lord of the Rings campaign previously. I did War of the Witch King, set a couple thousand years prior to your campaign, but it was fun to revisit the time that I love the most, which is the Lord of the Rings book and movie time period.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun time. Yeah, I ended up joining one of what was it? I think it was your. This is Diplo 6 you're writing now, so it'll have been Diplo 5. I ended up in that, and even though our bug team got squished horribly, I had a lot of fun with that. And then a couple other campaigns that we've run that were separate from Kriegspiel it has an appeal to me because I've always had the problem of playing war games where I'm looking at the table and I see all the chits or I see all the pieces, and I look at it and I go, well, if I'm over here, how do I know what's happening over here? I shouldn't know what's happening over here. And I've always had that problem and always that beef about games like that. And this kind of solved it.
Right, exactly.
So so James, if you want to talk about a little bit about what happened in our campaign, we can defend our dicey decisions and protest loudly about the ring falling into evil's hands.
Well, I mean, the glorious end.
I'll give a try and do a brief synopsis of the campaign as a whole, and my setup and thinking for it. First of all, I wanted it. If you talk about, I know the movies a lot more than I know the books. I've read the books twice, but I've seen the movies, I don't know, 10 times. And so I get them mixed up in my mind, and I know the movies better. So sometimes the lore that I built off of came from the movies and not the books, sometimes the other way around. But my main thinking was I didn't want any kind of, in Tolkien's books, often there's the Deus Ex Machina where the eagles show up at the last minute, or the dead show up, and like the things that happened that were outside of the player's control or the character's control that saved the day. And I didn't want that element, and so I designed the teams and the orders of battle or the army sizes so that it was conceivable for either side to win without having to have eagles or undead involved. And I did have like Gandalf was there and Aragorn, but they're minor characters, partially because I forgot about them and partially because I didn't want them to overpower you guys as characters. And so I designed the game where, yes, the free peoples, Rohan and Gondor were definitely outnumbered, significantly outnumbered, but they were on the defense and they had strong defensive points. And so I tried to balance it in that way where they could win, sticking to their defenses and potentially defeat Mordor. So how did it start? Well, everyone's a little bit spread apart. Even Mordor spread apart. Their armies are spread across Mordor. And so they've got to consolidate first. And Rohan's way far apart from Gondor. And you have the issue of Isengard and Saruman and his armies in the west, with the men of Dunharrow are on one side, and then you got Mordor on the other side, and Gondor and Rohan have the issue where they kind of got to defend both and decide, where do they combine? Do they support each other? And so very early on, Isengard was quite aggressive. And so the first battle we had was at the Fords of Isen, which is pretty strong, a good defensive point for Rohan. And so Rohan fought there, brought most of their army to that point, and Isengard had not brought all of theirs. And so Isengard is, this was months ago now. Isengard essentially let themselves, that army got almost fully defeated, but it was only about half of Isengard's army, if I remember right, which was a huge mistake that they'd made. They'd left the rest behind. And so half their army got defeated by Rohan. And then they sent the other half, again, across the Fords of Isen, and on the open plains east of Isen, let Rohan essentially surround them and defeat them entirely. And so the army of Isengard was wiped out. There's no Helm's Deep or anything. It was all happened on open fields, but that was where Rohan had the advantage with their cavalry, and Evan used that well. So that was one side. And then once Isengard was dealt with, Rohan started marching east to assist Gondor. And then there's, I'm got to jog my memory. So Imrahil was coming up from the south. He had a bit of a marching simulator because he had a long way to come from. But he ran into another interesting decision that Mordor made, was they sent a good chunk of their forces west. And so they attacked, they had the Corsairs of Umbar and some of the Orthsworn infantry. And then they had Harad coming up from the south. And so they sent that force to fight against Pelargir, which Imrahil had to defend, but he was way, way, way outnumbered in that case. And then there's more skirmishing around there. But eventually all the armies gathered around Gondor and Minas Tirith. And let's see if I'm trying to, there's at one, Mordor kind of got, I would say, antsy at this point. They were kind of afraid to attack. And so there's some maneuvers and half maneuvers. At one point they moved to intercept Rohan in the woods northwest of Gondor. And like in the books, Gondor got wind, or they could see it, they got wind of it from their scouts, and so they got special help to take a secret path through the woods and bypass the ambush, as that happened in the books. So I was okay doing that again. But basically they bypassed the ambush, and then there's a big battle on the west of the Anduin, where when it first started, I thought the Free Peoples were going to get crushed because they were pretty well outnumbered. But again, they always had the advantage in cavalry and maneuverability, and they used that well. And so it ended up being about even fight, even losses, but with Mordor retreating. So the Free Peoples won that one. And then And then they came back south to Minas Tirith, and I thought we were going to have a big battle at Minas Tirith. I even commissioned a map. I was ready to do it, and then Mordor got scared, and so they went on almost the full defensive. They holed up in Osgiliath and holed up at Caer Andros. Oh, we had a fight at Caer Andros earlier. I forgot about that. And that's when then Gondor and Rohan went on the offensive against Osgiliath. But in the background, all during this time, everyone had individual objectives. And Denethor and Sauron in particular had objectives to procure the ring. And so part of that limit, I wanted to give a limitation and some decision making for that. And so I said, you can give orders to your units or you can search for the ring. And you kind of have to decide which is more important to you. So actually Sauron did not spend that much time searching for the ring. He spent more time doing orders and whatnot, even though I don't think he actually needed to. And Denethor's almost every turn, he was just search for the ring, search for the ring, search for the ring. And so he's getting more and more information, more and more clues until finally he got lucky and his rangers, his special scouts found Frodo and Sam and brought them to him. And of course they were begging, to be let go and to complete their mission. And so I think he had a bit of a dilemma to make, a decision, but ultimately I think he decided what Denethor would have decided, which was to keep Frodo and Sam in prison, take the ring for himself. One thing that I did, I informed him as the Empire, but acting as the ring, but not telling him it was the ring, because I wanted him to if I said it was the ring, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm getting played here." But I basically told him, like, if you take the ring, you're not going to lose any battles. Like, you're going to win no matter what. And he's like, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And so I think that helped sway him. That was a lie, though. But I was lying on behalf of the ring. So anyway, he took the ring, and then I think that's partially why he got aggressive and agreed to go to Osgiliath, because he thought he could win. And so in the final battle, the armies go to Osgiliath, which is a strong defensive point for Mordor. And actually, their army of Easterlings most of the orcs were pretty well beaten by this point, but the Easterlings were fresh and strong. And had they just stayed in Osgiliath, they would have held. But they were retreating from the city basically the whole battle, while Gondor and Rohan are attacking. And the battle was interesting because they're attacking the city, but from the south, the Mumakil had finally arrived. And so Rohan's having to face off against the Mumakil, kind of hold them off for a time while Gondor can get in the city. But basically it ends with one of the Nazgul flying out of the city, finding Denethor, and they face off one-on-one, and the ring betrays Denethor, allows him to be killed, and the Nazgul gets the ring and takes it to Sauron, and so Sauron wins essentially. And so it was an interesting campaign in that the Free Peoples won basically every battle they fought. They did very well in that regard. But of course they lost the campaign goal because the ring didn't make it and get destroyed, which was a kind of a fun twist ending that different from history in the books and the movie. So it was a joy to umpire, a lot of fun. It actually lasted a long time. I think it was like 9 or 10 months long game in the end, because every time the operational piece was a day a turn, but every time we had a battle, we'd stop and everyone would play in the battle, and each battle turns like 20 to 30 minutes, and so that takes months or a month or two to process, and then you get back to the operational. So took time to get through it all, but it was fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. The announcement that the game was over was actually on a Thursday while we were recording. I can't remember what we were doing, but I was doing. It was like on my turn, and I saw something pop up, and I saw something about an announcement that you had placed about the campaign being over. I'm like, what's going on here? But I couldn't actually look at it until we were done with our playthrough. I can't even remember what it was, and it was killing me just not knowing what had happened.
Then you were like, Jacob!
Oh, I was so mad. That's why I messaged you the next day. I was like, next time you see Jacob at work, just punch him. The guy that was playing Sauron, after that, he messaged me. It was like, I was trying to just wipe you out at this point, but I couldn't say anything. There was a lot of good post game comments and stuff like that. I definitely had a lot of fun playing that. So Nathan,
Yeah, I was also surprised by the end. It's like it was the timing was interesting because we had just like broken through the walls and we're making some pretty significant inroads, and I was like, "Oh, it's going really well." But what happened? Oh, we got betrayed. Oh, great.
yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to bring with this was an idea I had a long time ago on our channels, as we primarily talk about board games, so some miniature games, but mostly board games. And this being a very old board game that it has really resurfaced over the last few years, and IKS is a fantastic following. Games flying by all the time. I'm constantly juggling now 5 or 6 games, and have started to volunteer to go through umpire training with James now. So the Kriegsspiel Cup is happening. I got invited by Miles to run a team. We did that. So I fully have been sucked into this world of Kriegsspiel. I thoroughly enjoy it. While we were playing Lord of the Rings, sometimes I would take my youngest son to his bus stop, and we'd get there 5 or 6 minutes early. And sometimes that's when I would put my orders in while we're waiting. And he'd be like, well, "What's happening? What are you doing? What's this battle? Who are you?" And he would just be asking questions, and that I would be thrilled about that too. So, but it was a fantastic time. And then one of the cool things I did by having this too was to invite a couple guys, mostly the guys here on this channel, that really haven't done a large scale war game in this scope ever. I think in the end, with some replacements, we had 4 typical war gamers, myself, Chris, and then we had 2 people over on the evil side too that are from Lord Wars TV Discord that I know pretty well join in. But almost everyone else has very little miniature experience or little wargaming experience. So I thought that would be a fantastic experience for them to experience something like this. So, James, even though you got to play a little bit in it, but you got to see and do some stuff. And then you, Nathan, what was your experience with it?
I thought it was fun. I had a little bit more leeway because we could talk more using, I forget what that crystal ball is called again.
Lantier, yeah.
Yeah, that was semi-helpful on there. But yeah, a lot of it was interesting seeing stuff appear or not appear, and like basically orders and then waiting, and then yeah.
So I have no experience whatsoever. I've never played a game like this before, and I know very little bit about Lord of the Rings. Actually, I was surprised how little I know, but I learned a lot actually by playing this. But it helped that I started out like way in the West, so I had time to learn. But I was able to learn as I played and just kind of give orders and see how they worked. And a couple of mistakes. I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I didn't understand that, and okay, so this one didn't go the way I expected, but I see why it went that way. One of the big things, like, I had never heard of this town Peligir, so I assumed it was a little town, and that was a bad misestimations. I was like, oh, it's probably like a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people in that town. No, it was like, I looked it up afterwards. I think it said 30,000 people in that town. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. Once I started getting in with everybody, I got a more feel of like the RP, and that was really interesting. And I really enjoyed that final battle. It was really building up, and like, my cavalry were awesome all the time.
So James, that was one of the ones you run, but you've run like I said 150 of it ish of them.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite moment during one of them? Just any
During
of them.
the inning game? Oh my.
One of you were like or most surprising, or I have
to jog my memory.
Yeah, just putting you on the spot.
Oh, that's fine. There's so many. I I like so I've run a number of diplomacy games, which are um, sometimes Kriegsspiel is purely like the war element, but these games have had a strong diplomacy element where there's a lot of politics involved, and then it leads to war and combat. Um, but there's been a couple games, some of the earlier diplomacy games that I ran. There were teams that made friends with, or allied with other teams, and then backstabbed them at very opportune moments. And it was kind of fun to watch and see the reactions. I always love seeing the reactions of the players when they get shocked by something happening. So there's a lot. It's hard to remember, but yeah.
Sounds cool. Yeah, I was one of the few people that enjoyed playing Diplomacy, the game,
Oh yeah.
when I was a kid. And that's if you've never played Diplomacy, the board game, that game is mean. Lots of people hate that game, like hate it. But this sounds like a much better version of that.
And it might be similar. Well, I actually, so I had heard of that game and I always wanted to play it but never did. And I'm like,
I'll play it.
I'm just gonna make my own and invite more Kriegsspiel elements into it. So I know like the combat in that is very simplified and abstracted.
Yeah.
And so what I did is basically made it less so. So it's a lot more involved, but
Yeah.
still the same idea at its root, I think.
In Diplomacy, if you just do the strategic movements, you can never win the game. It's impossible.
Mhm.
You have to use the diplomacy in there and then get the other people to, backstab other people, basically. So it promotes the being mean.
Yeah, and you have to be ready to get backstabbed and absolutely murdered by that being
And then,
backstabbed.
yeah, the people are like, I can't believe you backstabbed me. I'm like, well, yes. It's gonna happen.
So if you are prone to bitter feelings, it's probably not the game.
No.
It's true.
And definitely don't play any other games with that person for a little while because they're just gonna kill you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the games I played with James ran was his Diplo 5. So one thing that happened in there, the Earth team got like buzzed on like turn 2 and got completely just taken out.
Mhm.
Like they did, like I think the buildup of getting everything set was like a good month, and then within a week they were effectively out of the game.
Oh wow.
It was just
It's funny.
seeing that in the after action report. I was like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah. How long does it take you on average to prepare for one of these?
If it's a play by post, it depends on the part that can take the longest is the maps. And if there's already a map out there, it speeds things up a lot. If I have to make one or clean up one, that can take longer. But most games that I run, I don't run them unless there's a good map to start with already. So like for the ones for like this campaign, for example, there was a nice website that had pretty good looking, topographical, high level Lord of the Rings maps for me to use. So I just, copied them and used them as is. And that worked really well. Then each of the battles, I could find something similar that worked in each case. The nice thing about Lord of the Rings is a lot of people have done, created their own maps. And so I was able to find a lot of that. As I mentioned, there wasn't a great one for Minas Tirith and the area around it. So I commissioned one for that, which I ended up using for the Skiliath battle, thankfully. But yeah, the maps is usually the biggest limitation. And then there's just research, depending on where it is, like just research into what were the forces involved and their motivations and making sure that you have all that straight.
Well, I'll keep it going now. All right, so yeah, to run over 150 games takes a little while to run them. What we want to do is just at this point, I want to let everyone know that I'll put links to all the stuff for you in the show notes. So if you send those over, I can definitely put the links in. So for anyone's interested in this and wants to get into it, do you have links that are helpful to get them started or get them into games?
Yeah. Oh, you're asking me. Sorry. Yeah, we have International Kriegsspiel Society has Discord where kind of acts as a hub. So everyone puts their recruitment posts there, and there's a lot of discussions there too for their games. And then usually most games are in separate servers elsewhere. Like this one we had a server entirely dedicated to just this game. And so, but if you come to the Discord server or the website, we'll lead you there as well. You can sign up and then sign up for games that there's usually one or two posted every single day. So there's lots of opportunities to play.
Is there normally a wide range of different types that are available? Like you had
There
the Lord of
are.
the Rings. Is there like other themes available too?
So the majority are Napoleonic era or Black Powder, I'd say. So um, you see a lot of American Civil War, a lot of Napoleonic, and then up through like World War II, there's a lot of World War II. Those are the majority of the games, and then besides that, there's everything you can imagine. There's sci-fi, there's fantasy, there's other ancients, there's other modern, all sorts of time periods and settings. So pretty much anything you can imagine is there.
That is pretty cool.
Even 40K ones, James.
Oh, even
40K
40K
ones.
ones.
There is a 40K game coming up on my live game server here in a month or two.
I know that Jacob would definitely be really interested, and then John would be, and there'd be a bunch of people interested. I am like the Warhammer 40K lore, but I am not nearly versed in the 40K lore. Plus, the people I like playing aren't much for talking, like orcs and Tyranids. So, I don't even think Tyranids can talk. More like Screech, and then just go straight forward to things. So, like, that's not much of a strategy.
Screeching is a type of talking. It's
Just
fine.
Screech and eat whatever's in front of you. That's what they do.
So yeah, I'll add into there's tons of servers that are always being popped up into the IKS. The one that you're running too, it's a great launching point. There's the newbie server where you can. It's just a basic red versus blue scenario. I'm watching that kind of go through and just seeing a couple of different games of that going. I think it's a really nice training to kind of learn how to do this, and seeing people jump into that quite frequently. I've watching a couple games as they progressed as I'm waiting to do my turn at umpiring. I think it's really neat just to kind of watch people have their first experiences with this.
Yeah, we about a year ago we started up one, and then it's grown to a couple, but we wanted to have some games like readily available for people new to the IKS so that they could just hop in and get a taste of Kriegsspiel. And so I had one game. It's kind of a free for all on an island with teams continually updating or leaving and going. But we had a video come out about 2 months ago now by a guy called Super Bunny Hop, and he had played in that game, and then he made a really good video. It was like an hour and a half long, talking just about Kriegsspiel, but he spent about 20 minutes talking about his experience in that game. And after the video, we got a huge flood of people that came looking to play, which was awesome. But we had to expand from 1 to 10 newcomer games just to handle it all. It's since died down, but I ended up with that server and then another server to handle the red versus blue one to handle all the people. So yeah, we're trying to create or at least allow that experience initially so people can see what it's like, and then they can go on and play all the other regular games that we have.
Yeah, and with that server and the activity it has, I don't know how you do it with that and a couple of the servers I see you running and doing. I'm like, I don't know how you find time to do it all.
Well, I get a lot of help. Luckily, I have co-umpires and helping me run things and basically everything.
I think on the player end, one of the big strengths of it to me seems to be that it's a good way of doing like an epic game and an epic story with for somebody who has to work and doesn't necessarily have a huge amount of time every day because you're doing it in short, like little orders. And it's broken up into a long period.
Yeah, the play-by-post format's really appealing. I like it a lot, even as an umpire, because it's in nice bite-sized chunks. And so, like for me, to resolve a turn usually only took like half an hour, which isn't bad at all. And for a player, like maybe there's some time spent like talking if you're co-located with someone, but for the most part, like you get your update, you think about it, and you got 2 or 3 days, and then you type your orders, which are usually like a paragraph. It doesn't take a ton of time. And you can do it whenever you want. And so the time commitment and flexibility is really nice for people who are super busy but still want to play in a game.
So one thing I'm really interested in, is there a theme that you haven't done yet that you really want to in the future?
Theme? So because I've done 150 games, I've been able to play out a lot of the things that I wanted to. At one point, I had a goal of doing every major Civil War battle and then every major Napoleonic battle. And I've mostly done that. There's a few I still haven't done, but I've run at least one of them each. But then beyond that, I kind of just whatever strikes my fancy. And so I also, the majority of what I do, I'd say is black powder. But I do Age of Sail. I've done World War II naval. I've done World War II land. I just ran a World War I game. I like doing ancients every now and then. So like Punic Wars type period. I'm looking at my live games coming up. I'm doing a Game of Thrones, The Long Night, that's coming up.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I'm doing the Shattered Plains, so Stormlight Archive
What?
battle. So I'm doing drone wars. So one thing is, modern warfare, you're seeing drones feature a lot more in it. And I thought that's interesting to think about and to simulate. And so I haven't designed it yet. I got to design it, but we're going to do a battle, a non-country specific drone war battle where the players are commanding different drones and, they're trying to cross the battlefield and, blow up a tank somewhere or different objectives. But they get to design their drones for different features. So that's something I'm doing. I'm going to do the Siege of Eregion. I'm going to fix the Rings of Power. I'm going to do it right. So I'm doing the Siege of Eregion and a bunch of Civil War battles. I'm going to do the Battle of Endor. Every now and then I do Star Wars. I'm going to do the Wasteland Wars from Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
And I just watched the movie Greyhound, so I'm inspired. I'm going to do World War II destroyers versus subs battle. So I go all over the place, just whatever sounds interesting at the time.
So you a big Stormlight Archive fan?
I am, yeah.
Me too. I really love those books. Did you read the fifth book that just came out?
I am 3/4 of the way through.
Oh, it's a good book. I'll give you spoilers now. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, the Shattered Plane ones, that's like perfect with the parchment and stuff. And then you're gonna have each of the different houses.
Yeah, so you got the houses. It's going to be interesting because you have the houses conflicting. You've got a battlefield that's a bunch of plateaus with chasms,
Right.
which is really interesting. And then you got to deal with like the logistics and strategy of bridge crews and how you use them and strategically placing your bridges as well as your shard plate bears. And, thinking about all that, it's different from a normal battle. So I'm kind of excited.
And the chasm fiends, having to deal with
Right.
them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be super awesome. Have you ever watched The Expanse?
Yes.
I think that would make a really great diplomacy-based one between the three big factions.
It would. That almost became my Diplomacy 5 game,
Okay.
but I had trouble with the scale of it, because to simulate the space combat and the movement speeds, like to be realistic, moving between Earth to Mars to the belt and all that. I had a hard time figuring out how to make it work and still be fun for the players. Like either it's going to take way too long for anything to happen,
Yeah.
or like be too be too fast. So I couldn't figure it out right. So I ended up jumping to what I did do for Diplo 5, which was just this intergalactic bunch of aliens fighting over the galaxy.
Yeah, the space combat would be really hard because it's sort of just like whoever gets the first lucky shot wins. It doesn't matter what you got. Like, who gets the first lucky shot, the ship is gone.
Yeah.
So, like, what it would be in space. Like,
yeah. If you do realistic space combat, it's not as much fun for the player.
yeah.
I've read the Honor Harrington series too, and it's kind of the same idea where it's like who has the most missiles and anti-missile missiles, and it's just kind of a numbers game, and so not as much fun.
Yeah, or even like a Mistborn having the diplomacy for the houses would be really cool.
That would be, yeah.
So, yeah. Oh man. So yeah, it's really
see-
cool that could cover so much stuff. Go ahead, Evan. Sorry.
Yeah, and seeing some of the stuff that you ran too, there really isn't anything that you probably can't do because one of the games you ran on your live was a Kobayashi Maru scenario. So, like, if you can do something like that using the framework, anything's really possible.
Is that
Yeah,
without the cheat code?
Without they tried and they
They
lost.
just died. Like,
Oh, imagine that.
wait, we have to cheat.
Yeah, I mean, Kriegsspiel can really be used for anything. You just, you have an umpire and two teams, and they're both given their orders and simultaneously, and then you process it. And it can be used for a lot of people take existing board games and make them into Kriegsspiel. Because board games are designed. There's very few that have an umpire as part of it, and so you have to have the rules work where both sides are cooperating, but then that's where you lose the fog of war element. And so if you throw an umpire in there, there's so much more you can do with any game. And so ever since I found Kriegsspiel, like all other games have lost their savor for me because Kriegsspiel is just so awesome.
Yeah, I can attest to that. It gets a lot better once you put it into a realistic role and you have information of this is all I really should have. Plus, also, it's nice to get the player guide of 3 pages and like, oh, that's all I need to know. Great.
Yep. Yeah, you're not even supposed to know the rules. You just give orders like you would if you were a commander at that time, and then let the umpire handle the minutia.
I just had an interesting thought. It would be possible to do like in the Expanse, you have like a player that people don't even know exists playing. So you have the whatever they call that, bacteria or whatever that was, and people don't realize that even exists until later in the game. So within this framework, that seems like it would be possible.
Yeah.
Do you see a giant ship come out of Venus?
But yeah, so I think that really covered a lot of the stuff that we wanted to talk about there. If you have any parting words there, James, for people that are interested, what they should look for, what they should do, or where they should go to start, and
yeah. So first of all, I really enjoyed umpiring the game for you guys. It was I enjoyed it a lot. For anyone listening, if you are interested in playing yourself, you can look up the International Kriegsspiel Society.com, or is it .org? Just Google International Kriegsspiel Society.
We'll have the links in the description too.
You'll have the links. But there's a link to our Discord in that, and then we have a YouTube channel as well if you want to see videos of live games and some after action reports. But anyone's welcome to join and play. We'd love to have you, and I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, James, for coming on, talking with us about Kriegsspiel itself and the game that we had and hosted. Still think that we the free people should have won, but in the end, I will be bitter toward Jacob for many years now. It's fine. I'm still bitter with Nathan for backstabbing me in game of Moonrakers, I think 3 years ago. So
yeah, so
it's not
it
like
holds
I hold
on.
a grudge. It's fine.
Don't
It's
play
fine.
diplomacy with Evan.
I know you backstabbed me a number of times in other games, but I don't care if I remember them. So it's like
Those
I don't
don't-
hold grudges like you.
That doesn't count. Doesn't count. It doesn't count. but yeah, definitely thank you for running it. It was a great opportunity. I had so much fun playing in it, and the ability to bring a couple of people that didn't have an experience like this at all to have them experience it also. And again, thank you for coming on. And thank you all for watching another episode of our YouTube channel. Definitely like, subscribe, all that definitely helps us. Check out the links in the description below also to check out the International Kriegsspiel stuff. Hopefully I can see you in a game out there, and everyone have a great night.